let's get it started, man. Let me start, Blaine, by do me a favor. Brigadier General retired, right?
Yes.
So do me a favor, introduce yourself to any of our listeners, and I'll rewind back and let them know how we got here.
Sure. I am Brigadier General retired Blaine Holt. My Air Force call sign is Blaine-O.
Blaine-O?
That's what most people, you don't get to pick those in the Air Force.
Oh, no kidding.
So one afternoon in Texas, West Texas, when I was teaching T-38s, the little long, sexy white rocket, with my students, I came back in an afternoon and they said, "Hey, Blaine-O, you got to go back up in the third period." And I said, "Okay, I'll go back up and fly again in the third period, but my name's Blaine, not Blaine-O."
He's like, "No."
And then every instructor in the room went, Oh, we don't like that name, do we?
Like blood in the water.
So now, I mean, it has stuck with me over all the years. When I was working in Kyrgyzstan, I was the wing commander there. My boss was General Petraeus, and I always knew if General Petraeus called my secretary and said, "I need to talk to Blaine-O," all is well. But if he called and said, "I need to talk to Colonel Holt immediately," all is not well.
Yes. The way they use your name does matter. Same here. I would pour you some bourbon, but you wasted all that space.
Okay, I'm going to have a little water first.
That stuff that rusts, iron and rots wood and stuff. But I'll tell you.
Not the airlifter I once was.
Well, listen, as an Air Force guy, we're going to unpackage you a little bit. And then while you're here, because we're speaking to South by Southwest, and I think people are going to be blown away by the things that you're getting ready to talk about us with, let alone that panel. But I want to introduce you to the official bourbon of the data center industry. And I did a podcast with the boys from ODA 595, right? Do you know Scott Neal? Have you heard of him?
I've heard of him. I haven't met him.
Awesome dude. He came on and did a whole bourbon thing with me.
That's cool.
But it was after he took me to school and taught me how to shoot a bunch of weapons and stuff. But he left and he worked for the Green Beret Foundation, I think it is.
Great organization.
Yep. And he raised a bunch of money for him, but the intent of it was to figure out a way to help veterans go out and create their own businesses. Yep. So he raised like $5 million and then came in one day at the award ceremony. He goes,
"Wish I'd have met them when I got started."
Take a number, right?
Right.
So, and he goes, "Hey, I'm resigning from what I'm doing and I'm going to go start a business now based on everything we put together. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And if it doesn't work, then you all get your money back."
So be it. That's the way it works.
And I'm like, "What were you going to do?" He's like, "No idea." So he ends up at a gin place and he ends up trying a vodka place. And then next thing you know, him and another buddy stumble into, this is Scott Neals. He's the president and founder of Horse Soldier Bourbon. So I had him on right after the Army-Navy game.
See what we got here.
Yeah. Cheers.
Oh, that's very nice.
Isn't it awesome? Like,
that's very nice.
I didn't even drink bourbon, but thank God all winter. I just drink tequila most of the time, but in the wintertime I drink bourbon. Well, but when you're in the wintertime in Texas, you got to drink bourbon. So all right. So you go by, what do you want us to call you?
Blaine or Blaine-O's fine. If you call me anything else, I've been called far worse.
All right. Well, listen, give us a little history who you are.
Sure.
All right.
So,
those that don't watch Newsmax and don't see your face.
Well, they're never going to learn about me through just the 5-minute blips on, "Hey, the world's in trouble. You should know this." But no, I've lived all over the world, but I was raised in Georgia. I had some expat time in junior high in Hong Kong.
Was your father military too then?
Well, yes, but World War II. And then Dad goes on to become a marketing executive, and he's one of those madmen.
Nice. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah. So but raised in Georgia predominantly. I went and got my commission at Georgia. And all I cared about at the time was flying jets. That's all I cared. I didn't understand Constitution, didn't understand you're an officer, here's the rules, didn't understand any of that. I just went, that's a jet, I want to get into that. And you've got stupid rules where I got to have a college education and okay. So and you got to be an officer. So I go off and do that. I fly 38s out of West Texas. I got my wings up at Reese Air Force Base. It's not there anymore in Lubbock. Kid was born there, and then I start my aviation career. Bill Clinton, love that guy. He had what he called the peace dividend at the time in '92, and all of us little white jet flyers who were on our way to F-16s, whoop, change. You're going to airlifters. So here comes heavy jets, and I wasn't as repulsed by it or upset by it like my friends were. Some were really ready to get Harry Carry knives out and just do themselves in. I never even really considered it. So I go up to see a 141 sitting on the ramp, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so big. It's just so damn big. But a lot of people saw a cargo hauler, and you know what I saw? I saw a pirate ship with wings and had 4 hooligans in the back and 2 pirate captains in the front. And by God, I'm going to go all over the world.
Sure.
And that's what I want to do anyway. So between that jet and the C-17, I was the 80th pilot on that airplane, so brand new pilot on it. And that was where my first squadron command was. But 135 countries, some not so nice, some really cool.
Like I was stationed at the creme de la creme of all Air Force bases in Minot, North Dakota.
It's on all our recruiting posters. Yeah.
My dad.
You two could come to Minot.
Listen, I always would tell people that my dad was incarcerated in Minot, North Dakota for 5 years when he was like a lieutenant or major or whatever that. But I thought everyone had snow blanks up to the second story of their house in April. I thought that was normal. Right? But I don't know, I'm sure you did there. But I did Spokane. Were you there, it sounds like?
I did. 07 to 09.
Fairchild.
I was their vice wing commander,
I was at Fairchild when that KC-135 exploded. My dad used to fly in those air shows as well, and he knew that crew. And I think my brothers, I could be off on this.
Oh, you mean when the B-52 went down, the bomber?
I don't think it was the B-52. I thought it was a KC-135.
No, it was a bomber.
They've had 2 plane crashes there, I think, too, though. But my dad used to stand alert with a couple of those guys, and I think one of my older brothers may have wrestled with one of their sons, one of the father's sons. But it's a small world. You come from the Air Force. It sounds how many different? You flew a lot. It sounds like.
Yeah, so I flew most of my career. Ended up with KC-135s in my senior years, and then I got into really extensively complex commands like Kyrgyzstan. I did the surge with McChrystal and all of that, and we had a revolution and bullets flying everywhere. And then I went to the Council on Foreign Relations for a little bit of PTSD and finishing. You can write about this, learn about the cabal and the economics and the shadow government.
Shit.
And then off I go to work for the Secretary of the Air Force Chief. They do the finishing that they think is going to get me ready to be a 1-star. Doesn't work. And then I get pushed off to U.S. European Command, where I ran logistics for the Defense Department for the European Theater at a time when we had the Benghazi thing happen, Crimea happened. And then I finished my career quite hopefully on my terms, which they were my terms. I finished my career at NATO headquarters. And that was my second tour in Belgium. I was a Belgian staff college student, so I had a royal brevet, and it was nice place to finish up. Was wheeling and dealing in the back rooms of NATO headquarters. Not the new shiny one, but
was
the
that
nasty old one.
Were you a 2-star?
No, I graduated a 1-star. My little brother got out of the Air Force as a 2-star, which means he's shallow and petty because he hung on for 1 more star than I got.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the genesis of this, right? So it's not unusual. If I'm not bringing on data center industry luminaries, I'm bringing on people that inspire me, right? And like the guy that gave me this bourbon inspired me, right? So I also am speaking at South by Southwest, and we're talking about the 5th Industrial Revolution tomorrow. There's 2 panels. One is on the 5th Industrial Revolution, and the second is on the last Industrial Revolution. And that one is the one that I'm really excited. I mean, I'm excited about both of them, but in all the prep calls that we've had, I mean, the big focus on national security for AI is focused on what are we going to do about China. And look, I just thought that what I would do is maybe just kind of put that out there and be like, let's talk a little bit.
Red meat for me.
Hey, listen, let's just talk about this, So read me in. I could tell you this. China has stated openly that they intend to overtake America with their capabilities in AI before the end of 2030.
Sure.
And, that's an interesting thing. We have a head start on them because of the amount of infrastructure and mainframes and compute that we put on this planet between the 60s and the late 80s, early 90s. And then we followed that with a ton of fiber. So we've put fiber. We connected the hub and spoke backbone of the fiber internet world through the NFL cities of the United States using the railways, primarily the right-of-ways, to do that. Not every railway has fiber, but many or most do. And now we're staring down the barrel of an existential threat where we are standing here with the tip of the spear in technology. We started with the hyperscalers being Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. And today it's still Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, Cloud. I mean, but there's massive players that are making 50 to 70% of the internet traffic or the capital deployed in this vertical worldwide. The sky for the cloud, as we see it today, is in Northern Virginia, which is the headquarters for the largest federal company in the United States, which is the government. But the home for AI is going to be Texas, because we have a lot of Well, we got 15 military bases, 226 universities, 10,400 miles of railway line, which is 7.8% of the U.S. railway, not to mention more renewable energy and resources than any other state of the union. We're flaring a gigawatt of power a day right now at the Permian Basin. So
you own your own grid.
Yep. So what's going to happen is we're going to build some stuff, and we're going to do it because we, the consumers, are driving it. But more importantly, the most advanced weapon machinery and technology ever built is built for and funded by a government agency for national defense and intelligence. Mm-hmm. We're both former military people. Every man in my lineage is military. So I kind of have a little bit of an understanding of what we are exposed to in that space. Mm-hmm. But I also understand the real threat, or maybe the imposed or perceived real threat that we have with China. And in some cases, I've talked to many people, I'm not as worried about China as others may be. But there's reasons for that. I get to have amazing conversations with people that take me high, wide, and deep on certain topics that aren't as mainstream. What I was hoping you would do is, knowing that the existential threat to the adoption rate of emerging technology, specifically around the surge of AI, is the lack of power to support the demand of energy that's required to grow AI and the people that are capable of putting that power online and then servicing and maintaining and operating everything. I'm the CEO of a technology incubator for labor. I have a podcast platform to talk about the industry's challenges and needs, and I can reach every military base with it. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we have the #1 conference in the United States right now for data centers, and we have the most impact on the industry through that conference. What I need more of you, right? I need you to. Some of the most exciting conversations I've had have been where you were dropping just nuggets on me with regards to China shit. I thought you were Chinese and lived and grew up in China.
I did. Hong Kong, 5 years.
No shit. Well, listen, let her rip, right? So, Blaine, walk us through what's real out there. Is China the real threat that we think it is? What are some of the optics that we have to worry about? What are the bullshit things that are pitching the dirt we shouldn't be swinging at? What are the things that are real?
Yeah. So to start, and we could embark in any avenue of approach, I'll pick this one just randomly. We have every ability to manage this competition / conflict / war, Cold War, to a victory for us. We have every tool in the drawer. And if you're China and you open up the same drawer, you don't have all the same tools. Here's the big tectonic plate moving, why I think we have an edge on China. It's not, to me, yes, I think we're superior in our technology or innovation. We can outpace them in innovation, and that's great. But at some point, these things become ubiquitous. These things become commoditized. And so they've got DeepSeek because they stole it. They've got, they're working on qubit computing because they stole it. You had a whole lot of naive people in the Silicon Valley over the last 25 years who just went off la, the Chinese are our friends. See, these terrible military people don't know what they're talking about. It's like, yeah, okay, thanks.
All the espionage.
That's right. So the point though is, and I've always said this about their economy, when I've lectured in China, I've lectured at their universities, I've done track 2 diplomacy with Chinese diplomats and generals, even Henry Kissinger, previous ambassadors like Win Lord, across the table shouting at each other in some cases with these guys. The place where we get worried is almost business development for the military-industrial complex. And I'm not saying we don't need a military-industrial complex. I'd like to see it be a more level playing field, but that's an entrepreneur speaking that. The Chinese have not a glass ceiling. They've got a titanium ceiling on their ability to break out. So if you think about S-curve development, S-curve scaling, right? They hit a wall that we never hit. And the reason they hit a wall is because there are cultural no-go zones for them. They are still a draconian communist state. They have to control everybody. And they don't fire and spark or incentivize innovation in their country like we do. They don't have a culture for it. And furthermore, the Chinese Communist Party has absolutely used up its credit card. They are in deep, deep poop as far as their economy goes. Doesn't mean they don't have a lot of gold. I'm not trying to say, oh, they're going to fall tomorrow. They're not. But when you think about the resources required, the innovative power that's going to be required to bring this intersection that we see emerging as robotics, quantum compute, and AI and data, where they all come together at this intersection. That takes all these resources that China has mismanaged itself to get to, and they know it. And so it's cute. Fudan University wrote a big paper about how smart they were that they stole OpenAI Model 3. But they don't have the ability to manage it.
To originate.
Right. And then the other part is, if you look at Xi Jinping and his circle of 80-year-olds, they would be hard-pressed to turn that iPhone on. So they don't understand it, and they're covered up with yes men. So when they make grandiose statements like, our real estate market is rebounding, our AI is the best AI in the world, our computers are the best computers in the world, that's what they're being told by the people who don't want their organs harvested out of their bodies. And so we don't have that problem. We have a corruption problem. There's no question about that. We have a corruption problem. It's endemic. But we can fix that because we have a constitution. So we can get after those things. We can make it a more level playing field for our technologists and our innovation teams. And the thing that's funny about the Chinese, they stole all our F-35 technology for that fighter jet, which is another conversation for another day, but they tried to make this thing called a J-35. Well, copies don't always go so well. So if you think our jet's bad, their Swiss Army knife is really bad. And the point is, they convince themselves of things. It's still at its base a Stalinist, Marxist regime. They talk about market democracy with Chinese characteristics, which is a long way to say we're still Marxists, so watch out. Well,
they say they have a capitalistic economy with a
no, they don't.
communistic society or some shit like that. That's how they try to explain
right.
it.
That's like when you hear some nonsense here saying, well, I'm fiscally conservative, but I'm liberal socially.
Yeah.
That's a big Austin thing. So
I was like, you're looking right at me when you say it.
So when you get to this place, the Chinese have also done themselves a very bad turn. They have overextended themselves in the world. They're going through their colonial period right now, and it's blowing up in their face. This Belt and Road Initiative, where they have payday loans and scams all around the world to influence people, influence governments. So there's the above board loan and the below board loan. So they'll roll into a country like Kenya. You guys need a dam here. Oh, yeah, we do. We can't afford it. Yeah, you can't. We're going to build it. Oh, really? That's nice. Yeah. And you, leader, are going to get this loan for you. And then the rest of the projects are going to get financed this way. And by the way, you're not going to have any labor in it. We're going to bring the Chinese here and we're going to do it all that way. And if you get all butted off about that, we'll set up a scholarship program where some of you can come to Fudan University and we'll all be racists around you there. So what's happened is they have squandered this. I mean, hell, they're even trying to exploit the Arctic. So they built 4 icebreakers. They want to get a total of 9. Do it. Fine. Spend the money. Go ahead, kids. Because you're out of money. So what could we do? Well, look what President Trump did today at the crypto conference. He just said, I'm creating in the United States for the very first time a Bitcoin reserve. We're going to have a crypto reserve. And now we're going to get to the bottom of where the gold is in Fort Knox. You see a change coming. And if we do something to fiat right away, well, macroeconomically, the Chinese are sitting there as the bag holders with a lot of our treasuries going, what do we do with these? It's like, well, they're not going to bear as much money, kids. So when we look at China as it's a monster, it's going to swallow us, I can show you the military-industrial complex giant company that's putting that out in front of you. Because traditionally, in order to do business development in defense, we've always needed an enemy.
Yeah.
When I was a Cold War kid.
Yeah, Russia.
It's the Russians. The Russians did it. Yeah. Then it's the war on terror. What a great business model that is. It's nebulous. That's like the war on machine guns.
Yes.
So we don't know who the enemy is.
We just have a reason. All we need is a reason.
War for war's sake. So we call that a self-licking ice cream cone. And now it's the Russians again. No, it's the Chinese. No, it's the Iranians. And you just got to buy more. And so you see these break aparts with Europe, which has deindustrialized itself now down to, some car factories and a dog named Rex. They're in trouble. And energy-wise, they're in super trouble. So they can't do the AI. They can't do this other innovation. Meanwhile, we're quietly fixing our problems. And it's delightful to see, but it's also getting us to the place where it's like, do we really have to have all these forces in Europe? I'm guessing we don't. And maybe Hungary could just give us a base and we'll just be set. The world is changing so rapidly below our feet, and China is at the center of that. And here's the thing, talking to the Trump team, they're not even out for the juggler to fail China. They'd like to see China just be a responsible member in the global commons, hold their feet to the fire on trade agreements and that type of thing, and knock off the espionage, or we'll call you out on it, we'll arrest your spies, and we'll just do the normal blocking and tackling. We're not looking for World War III with you, but we're also not, the Chinese, more importantly, the Chinese Communist Party is all about, we must overtake the United States because we endured the bad century, which is Boxer Rebellion going forward. And they blame us for all of it. They really should be blaming...
They blame us?
Oh, sure.
Not the Japanese?
No, they should blame the Brits. They're the ones that did the Opium Wars. And so...
But the Japanese, what they did to the Chinese...
Oh, yeah, the rape of Nanking and all of that. Yeah. So
people don't realize...
But it's on our tab. And honestly, if you need a bad guy, we're a great bad guy. But what I see happening in the next 5 years, and I hate to put timeframes on things, but I feel pretty comfortable about this. I think you're going to see the end of the CCP. And if it's not violent, and do remember historically all dynasties end in tears, so it could be violent. But if it's not violent, they're getting old, they're dying.
So it's an interesting country. It's an interesting nation. People don't understand the impact of the one child policy and the impact that it's having on their society today, right? They're also, I look at it and was asked a question once about, do we fear them from well, let me ask you before I share with you what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. From a military perspective, I don't see them as being as proficient at war as we are right now.
No.
So
they suck.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I look at what a forward combat controller in the Air Force can do. I don't think China has anybody that can do what a CT
so,
can do.
Yeah, in the junior varsity is what I call the flattery round. Yeah. You have an aircraft carrier. We have an aircraft carrier. The catapults don't work. Yeah. We have cruisers. We have robotics. We have this.
We have drones.
It's just flattery. That's not where, as a military officer, I get nervous about the Chinese. Where I get nervous about the Chinese is they have exquisite cyber capabilities. They have exquisite fifth-generation warfare training. So they blur all the lines. In our kind of world, we have lots of stovepipes. So, you're a counterintelligence person. You're in this stovepipe. Oh, you're a space int person. You're in this stovepipe. And what they've done is they've ripped out all the stovepipes and said, let's just talk about effects. We used to get into the sexy rage of this is effects-based operation. We're going to have this thing blow up at this time. Okay, that's not effects-based operations. Effects-based operations, which the Chinese are very capable at, is... And I'll tell you, I'm writing a fictional series on fifth generation warfare, but I'll take you through this where, let's say you got a gal. She wakes up in the morning, had a good party last night because she got a big promotion at work. She's up in Lubbock. She gets in that old late model Mustang. She is a server professional. She's not really an IT person as much as she's really good at getting out to a company, yanking the rack, putting the new rack in, testing it all, getting on her way. And that's what she does. So she wakes up that morning and she goes down to 4th and Slide, which is in Lubbock. And the weirdest thing happens. The light is green, but the truck opposite her smashes into her car, totals the whole thing out. Why? Because all the lights were green at the same time. Brought to you by the Guangdong Cyber Center in Guangzhou. And then they leave it alone. Now we have changed her temperament visibly. She's not joyful anymore. And then we do a couple of other injects. And I had this debate in Northeastern University with a CISA SES. She just wasn't getting it. Then we put some other injects. Bottom line is she gets fired. At the same time, something that looks identical to a Dell server that is in the Permian Basin IT center for the wells just north of Midland has been mailed from Iran to Bangladesh, to Hungary, to Austria, to Puerto Rico. Your Amazon driver takes it up. And then a guy named Ahmad, who is a part-time student at Texas Tech University, he sees that job is open and he knows about servers, so he's going to apply for that job, and he gets it right away. So he gets the job. He's got the server. He takes the legit server and throws it away. And now he drives down to the Permian and he injects the applesauce. And now the applesauce is there and it's not even the real op. The real op is to change the price of oil to freak out the markets at a particular point in time, and then to do a cyber hit, a major cyber hit or a grid hit on us and blind us at the same time, maybe a flash crash and something like that. And then they activate the ones that they paid off in the swamp, the politicians they own on both sides of the aisle. And it all becomes a concert. And then the argument that I make is, are we talking about a cyber attack or are we talking about something else? Well, it's not a cyber attack. Oh, but it is. Stop thinking malware. Start thinking about condition changes. Start thinking about the human mind and stimulus upon us and getting me to do something that's predictive to my behavior set when the stimuli comes to me. And the Chinese, they're good at that. And so when we sit there and look at their crappy aircraft carrier, we're like, that couldn't do anything. It's like, you're right. It couldn't. But this other stuff.
Yeah, that's a real threat.
And how many came across our border? A good friend of mine is Michael Yon. And he tracked them all coming through Darien, and they're all here in polystab units, 15 to 20 men, and they're here ready for the call. Hey, go take out that water supply. Go take out that grid. Go take out this.
It's the infrastructure they're going to
create chaos because they outnumber us, first responders, military members, the guard, all that. So now when I take that to you, and then, some mainstream media outlet goes, President Trump's crazy. He's going to get us out of NATO and bring all the troops home. Reckless. That's like, well, we better get our forces back home.
Yeah, because
we got to defend the motherland now. And that's
I think it's only a matter of time until there's another hat on us. I thought it was going to happen last year. I thought it was going to happen during all those college protests.
I did too.
I thought
it was a good cover. It was a very good cover.
Well, it was obviously, for all I know, and I'm only guessing here, I've watched the reports that Doge has come out with respect to what specifically was U.S. aid, and I think I read that there was some money being funded from
funded
USA.
The whole thing.
Funded all the protests, and
we're being undermined by the enemy inside the wire. That is the one that we face. It's not China.
Yeah.
If we can nip the enemy inside the wire and find out who's compromised and go after them, we're going to be just fine.
But listen, I believe that problem will always exist, always has, and we'll constantly be battling that. But some of these ones come and go that are related to technology. And I do know that I don't see, do you see China imploding in the next 5 years? Okay.
Yes, or they're going to...
Because right now they're saying they're going to overtake us in the dominance of AI.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's marketing and there's reality. And the marketing is, we're going to be the first ones on the moon. We're going to be the guys going to Mars. We're going to be the dudes doing this. They have nuclear missile sites where the soldiers are guarding those silos, who have carved the solid fuel out of the bottoms of those missiles and use it to heat their food.
Shut up, for real?
No, it's for real. So and Xi Jinping, he is so nervous about and I'll tell you about this fable in a second, but he's so nervous about assassination. And there's several instances where he shows how paranoid he is about that. He has purged general after general after general. I mean, people I know that are very competent, and nope. If you're showing signs of management, I got to get you out of here. He had a situation where he was at Davos, not this last one, but the one before that, and he's flying back to China, and then he last second interrupted the aircraft and diverted it into Xinjiang province. That's the Muslim province in the northwest, sorry. And then he had his entire staff come out to Xinjiang province, had a meeting with them, and they got on the bullet train and they went back that way because he was trying to do an SDR, surveillance detection route, for those of us who don't know. And that's how afflicted he is with that. Now, if you get to Chinese culture, which also is a hamstringer for him, he believes it. He is a Taoist. That's his belief structure. If you know he's a Taoist, then he believes a mythology in Chinese lore called the Tui Bei Tu. The Tui Bei Tu is a fascinating book that I think it's 65. Don't hold me to this, but I think it's 65 etchings. Beautiful art. I mean, just gorgeous art. But it talks about the errant emperor, the bad emperor. And it's very prophetic. And it talks about all the travails, and the emperor tries to take over everything and dominate everything and hold everything. And he goes after his people. But at the end, the last panel is 2 black swans and a white swan. And the white swan is bleeding profusely and is crashing into the rocks. And he believes that's the That's the prediction of his assassination.
Oh,
by his own people.
Really?
Yeah. Which I see. I mean, if you got that kind of fugly bugly nightmare every night, I'm guessing you're not getting good sleep. But there is a lot of palace intrigue right now. His number 2, and I don't have his name here with me, but is maybe making a move.
Oh, wow.
So the thing is, what does China do in that kind of world? Well, does the CCP go away? Because the people are certainly pissed off.
Yeah, it's like, what happens?
Do they do something to Taiwan to do a wag the dog and get everybody focused there? Better not do that, because they'll go take out the Taiwanese will take out the Three Gorges Dam. Immediately, half of China's gone at that point. And China in the next 10 years could balkanize. It's a multicultural society. Yes, you've got from Guangzhou up to Dalian, all Han Chinese, but what a lot of people don't understand is, well, they took over a lot of lands, Tibet, Xinjiang, all these other groups. Even the Cantonese that are Han Chinese would tell you down in Hong Kong, we're ready for them to go.
For real.
Forcibly if necessary.
For real.
So when you can't feed your country, when you can't provide energy, when you can't provide opportunities. If you and I were to walk on the Bund in Shanghai, the most exclusive Rodeo Drive equivalent shopping area in Shanghai right now, it'd be a ghost town.
Really?
Yeah, because everything's shut down. The money is flying out of the country. People are trying to save themselves. Foreign companies are quietly not making announcements, and they're going away. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they've all evacuated from China.
For real?
Oh, yeah. So when you start looking at it, it's like, this doesn't look good. So I think we're in really good shape with China.
You do?
As bad as we are.
So you're not worried. Okay, so because China commissioned 31
unless they do something really bad.
For the last 3 years, they've commissioned at least 10 nuclear reactors, with the exception of last year where they did 11.
Yes, no choice.
And they'll build more than 100 coal plants.
They will, and no choice. And they don't care. Macron can go there and have some crocodile tears over some carbon, and they don't care.
The amount of pollution that comes out of that part of the world is incredible.
And they're getting nervous about it too, but they're nervous about it for not the reason we would be. So if we had a pollution issue like they had, let's say Pittsburgh and the industrial corridor of the United States, if our environment looked like that there, and ours could be cleaned up even better, but, well, you'd see people in the streets, you'd see all kinds of stuff happening, but they're just now getting to the place where a group I work with has been contacted and said, we're setting up a super fund, billions of dollars. We want you to get the best of the best in your nation to go clean up this shale rock that we've just been throwing off to the side for decades.
Shut up.
No. And if you can get that done, we got plenty more. In other words, they only care about what will cause the people to rise up. When your baby that's born in Dalian is riddled with tumors by their second year, and it becomes a common occurrence because of the water they're drinking, you better get nervous. Yeah. Because this is what I noticed about anything, any conflict we see. But go back to the Arab Spring. I'm assuming you've been to Egypt in your lifetime.
Alexandria.
Good. That's a nice part of it.
It's the only place we pulled up to.
So I was in Cairo. Egypt is a police state. There is no democracy in Egypt.
For real, huh?
Yeah. The only thing is they say they're our allies and our friends, so we cut them a break. Okay, go ahead and oppress your people. Whatever. But then here comes this Arab Spring. Well, do you remember back in let's call it 08. I think it's 08. The GFC just ended, and Bernanke comes up with this brilliant idea. We'll buy our own treasuries. We'll call it quantitative easing, and we'll do that, and we'll just keep reciprocating the money in the system, and we'll take care of us, and we'll just Band-Aid it, and we'll kick the can down the road. Everybody's going to be happy about this. Well, when you do quantitative easing, there's a massive macroeconomic effect on commodities. They go through the roof. So that means food, energy, all out of reach for the average Egyptian. So now you got Egyptians on the ground in a police state who are very easily controllable at the end of a gun. But these dads are watching their children, their daughters and their sons die right in their hands because they can't eat. They're starving. So what do? They go, I got nothing to lose. I'm going out to Tahrir Square. I'm going to follow this government. And that's what they did. So what does China do? If they don't get a handle on things with Chinese agronomy, Chinese energy production, the blocking it, the things that are not going to make a military defense contractor's brochure.
Yeah.
But that's where we need to hone our efforts in terms of diplomacy. So if the Chinese come to me and they say, can you clean the shell rock up? I'm like, yes, I can. Because does that delay conflict or prevent it altogether? Yes, it does. Another group I work with, they're talking to her about, you're a world-leading expert in regenerative farming and water management. Can you clean up our soil and the siltification of it? Yes, I can. We have technologies for that. AI is a big part of that, but they have AI. They haven't vectored it into the use cases that are novel use cases that we have, because they don't pay. So they've set aside this fund and they're coming to us. My thing, people would say, well, why are you working with the Chinese? I mean, you're kind of been an American general and you've really worked with these guys. They've got a file on you 2 inches thick. Because if it can do something to stop World War III, I'm in. I'm all in. Then let's not do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. How, what do you see? Paint with a little bit more vivid context. With broad stroke, it's like, hey, they're going to have some challenges, the CCP, in 5 years from now. Yeah. But between now and then, is it an erosion of anything in particular? Do you think that, like the Cold War we kind of bankrupted a group, right? And in this case, bankruptcies tend to kill any empire, right? If you look back at anything. Or
make them more dangerous.
Sure. So in this case, China has a really good ability to plagiarize and copy from anything that we start, and then they build from that. But having the lack of origination probably really is a big laggard to what they're trying to accomplish against us. But they're stating that they're going to overtake us. They're putting the power on the grid. Well, of course, we haven't built nuclear reactors, and
I know we're about to though.
But it's funny because the guy that I just did a podcast with is from the Department of Energy. Yeah. And we talked about the trials and tribulations of trying to get those and how long it's going to take and what the challenges are. And I was trying to push him on. I just assumed oil and gas was the biggest group pushing resistance against nuclear. I could be totally wrong, but I know that they're probably the number one group that pushes against renewables. Yeah. Right? So the person or the group that has the most to lose from the advance of something else is the one that's probably the most suspect to me.
Yeah, I think your instincts are exactly bang on. My take is that we ought to be involved in everything. And if you find a model that's profitable and works, then pursue your model. But what we've done is, with technologies that are not quite ready for prime time, we've embraced this death cult. Got to get rid of gas, got to get rid of all the fossils. And if you look at California, what have they done? They've come, not only that, you can't drive a truck that's older than this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. Well,
please by the way, don't plug in your cars at once because we don't have enough power.
I know that. We'll brown you out. So the big thing is so you're turning us into a third world country because carbon. Awesome. So it's not to argue the science of climate change or not. Everybody comes into a different place and they listen and read and research different scientists. Could care less. I'm building a product now for my company that takes plastic out of the ocean, cardboard boxes, we put some goop on it, waterproof, fireproof walls. Okay, great. That's awesome because I don't get into the carbon game. There might be some credits for us there, but I don't get into the game. The game is... It's something that we used to joke about in our military career, in the competitive nature of our military career, which is it's not enough that I succeed, but
you have to lose.
You must also fail.
Yes.
And when you think about it that way, so when you're in a zero-sum game environment, then people won't come to the electric cars unless we get rid of all this crap.
Yeah.
And where our national security is concerned, we are flirting with disaster. So we're not going to play that game. Now, Europe has all but cut its wrists, and I don't know how they're going to get it back. I honestly think Europe is looking at 20 to 30 years to correct the damage of the last 10.
From not investing harder or pivoting quicker into energy?
Yeah, they didn't decide where their energy inputs would come from. They only decided that we're going to villainize nuclear power and we're going to villainize fossil fuels. Well, okay, great. How many windmills do you need to replace all the energy that you had there, France and Germany? Right. Because it seems to me that Rheinmetall, Mercedes, Porsche, Volkswagen, and Renault need the power, or you're not going to sell a car, and you certainly won't sell one competitively. Now we're going to answer your tariffs with our tariffs at the same level. You're not competitive anymore. So then does Europe become irrelevant? And that's where the absolute kernel is of this fight we've got with two different visions of the Russians with Europe, which is you guys, the Russians are not leaving planet Earth. They're not all going to Mars. They're just not. You can drop Putin tomorrow with an assassin's bullet and you're just going to get a worse guy. So stop lamenting Russia. They have cheap gas, cheap oil. They want to give it to you because they got to pay for an economy on their own. Is there some sort of deal to be done? And can we stop blowing up pipelines? It seems that deindustrializing this continent is not a good idea. So you have the globalists who are like, well, wait a minute. If I deindustrialize, checks the box on climate change, checks the box on control, which is what this is about. And J.D. Vance brought that out at the Munich Security Conference, which is you guys kick in doors of people who say bad things on Twitter.
Yeah.
And if your democracy is that fragile, you're in real trouble. Yeah. Well, that's not us. The nice thing about us culturally, there's two entities. I'll break it down very simple. We have the swamp. And that's a total different ecosystem of corruption. This is the way it's always worked. Billy's going to transition into the private job, and then he's going to come back into the government job, and blah, blah, blah. And
how about like it was the lady that just left? She was the head of the FDA.
Yeah.
1 month ago. Today, she's the chief medical officer for Pfizer.
Amazing.
How did that happen? I'm sure there was the first time.
Making $11 million a year.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure she didn't cut any breaks.
Yeah. No. It's fine. Oath to the Constitution. But then you have the other entity, which I have more faith in after God, is ROTC. And ROTC stands for rest of the country.
Oh.
And we're formidable. We're formidable. We don't like people telling us what to do. We don't want you down here looking at my church. If I want to have a damn don't tread on me flag, I'm going to have it. If you tell me it's racist, I'm going to make a bigger one. That's our attitude. And I remember having a fight, actually a debate, spirited debate. I got in trouble at CFR for ripping the face off of George Soros. He apparently at a meeting I was at needed a lesson in the Constitution. Long story. So
Soros, you got in trouble for getting mad at George Soros?
The Sith Lord.
No shit. Sith Lord.
So that's why my nickname is the Irascible. So the next day, the president of CFR, Richard Haas, says, why don't you come on down to the office? And I'm like, oh, that cannot be good.
That's always good.
So
did he ask you to come on a Friday? That's normally
yeah.
I need to talk to you privately on a Friday.
I tell everybody, it is very true. And people who have known me my whole life are like, when I say a little quip and I say, my principals knew me way better than my teachers did. That's true.
Oh, yeah.
So,
a number.
So here's Haas having me down there and we're having this big rock'em sock'em robots. And then we stopped and he was like, okay, no more interaction with Soros. I said, okay. So he said, how do you like CFR? Is it good for you? And I said, I love it. It's an intellectual candy store. Mostly I like the arguments. Mostly I like to jump into the round and go, well, that's just batshit crazy. Let me tell you why. And sometimes I'm the one who's wrong and I love it. And it's the investigation that I like, the curiosity that I like. Anyway, so he said, well, where do you think we're deficient? And I said, well, I don't know if you can do anything about it, and it's not your fault. Personally, it's not your fault. But you fancy people here in New York City who live on Billionaires Row, even if you don't have $1 billion, and breathe the rarefied air. Car picks you up 8 o'clock sharp every morning. You don't really see anybody who works there. If you get a hot dog, some executive assistant will bring it to you. If you go to a Yankees game, it'll be in a skybox. You all have more in common with London, Rome, Singapore than us. And he goes, who's us? I said, the country, us. You all don't appreciate why we appreciate and see the value in a Friday Night Lights high school football game, even if we don't have a kid game. You don't understand why we would show up at church on a Sunday. You don't understand why when something bad happens in the town, we'll all come out with shovels and try to make a difference. You have no idea about that because your world revolves around the world I told you.
Where they have peasants.
Yeah, and you guys all look like sunflowers staring at Washington, D.C. in the swamp. And that's the flower of the money. But if that's what this is really all about, I think you do well to get to know the American people because we don't care. We have a lot of apathy. But when you agitate us, trust me, there's a history here. When you agitate us,
sleeping giants never worked
well,
out.
then we get going. And when we get going, we don't stop, as it turns out. So FBI rolling up a few school board moms who are taking on their school board, or we don't like your tweet. You can't have a Trump flag on your truck. The HOA said you can't have a ham radio. These are the microaggressions that here in our country, we're like, I'm not doing it. Or you get, thank goodness it's all gone now and we've eradicated this, but you have the National Firearms Act of 1934, which is unconstitutional. You can't have a short barrel rifle. So we find a million different ways to make a rifle no, that's not short barrel, that's a pistol. But the point is, we take those liberties very seriously and they're getting returned to us. But when I look at Europe, and I talk to my European friends all the time. I was talking to my friend in Ireland. They're watching their whole country go away right now.
Ireland shut down all innovation of technology.
That's right.
They just said, hey, and right now there's a guy named Gary Connolly in Ireland who is got the same haircut as you.
Yep.
He's a beautiful bald man like you. I spoke with him on a panel at DCAC in Dublin last year, and he's probably done more for the country of Ireland than anybody else to bring technology and innovation there. And all he does is care.
And he's watching the sandcastles.
And he's like, why are we deciding to no longer Ireland? Why are we?
They're committing suicide.
You know what's? I think it's this. Ireland cut off all power, right? And I mean, it's a big rock. It doesn't have a lot of power, but
they needed it.
But what happened was when Aerogrid shut down, all those data centers, the adoption rate of technology didn't stop.
Right.
So now you have Irishmen going everywhere and building data centers everywhere but in Ireland. They're still a big part of the labor force. They're just not building in Ireland. But like I'm seeing it from your perspective, but we're seeing it in technology where there are countries that are just simply shutting down because I had the guy that was the former director of Aerogrid, the utility for the country. And he's like, listen, when we had this political party that came on, they said, you can't produce any more power unless you are removing carbons along the line is when you do it.
And we'll decide what that is.
And they said, so they basically gave them an impossible task.
That's right.
And said, look, if you can make the science bend to this.
Control.
Yeah. Like
we control you.
You can have it any color you want as long as it's black, And
so there's my favorite quote from Winston Churchill is you can always trust the Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. and we're there, and that's a good thing. This is an exciting time.
Did he really say that? I love that quote.
Put that absolutely. He said that.
I don't see that one much.
And so whenever I see people that have worked for me or people are despondent, oh my God, we're on the eve of nuclear war. It's like, tut. We'll be fine. We'll be okay. But there are some awfully bad.
Are you worried about like North Korea being a proxy for China, though? I mean, maybe the threat isn't China.
Well, that's the last thing I'm worried about. Right now, Little Kim and Xi Jinping are not getting along at all. In fact, if you looked at Putin's last visit to North Korea, for both of them to do that and then North Korea to pledge troops to go to Kursk was not a finger at the West. It was a finger in Xi Jinping's eyes. Why? Because they're behind on their payments and support to the Russian war. And that's why I'm saying is be very careful before you isolate the Russians and tell them we're going to make it so you guys can't eat, when all you'll be doing is throwing them into the arms of the Chinese.
Did you ever watch the documentary from, it's ironic enough, on the last podcast I talked about Nuclear Now as a documentary from Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
But did you ever watch the Putin interviews that he did?
They were awesome.
What was your thoughts on that? I watched it too. But that was years ago when Putin was talking about things that are happening now. That was like 10 years ago.
We're climbing into the head of a genius sociopath. That's my take.
Is that what he is?
Yeah, but he has got a self-preservation motivation. If you say that your role in life, Keir Starmer or Macron, is to bump Putin out of power, if you say that's my goal, this guy is a bloodthirsty killer. Okay, he is. Well, what will you get after that? And the other part is, have you not studied enough Russian history, going back through the czars, to understand that they don't prefer a Jeffersonian democracy like we've got? They want the strong man. I learned this in Central Asia when I was in Kyrgyzstan. you don't want somebody you voted for. You just want the biggest badass on the hill because he provides stability.
Yeah.
Iraq. And so they fret about Putin. But where I think the administration is and their policy is, okay, so the two biggest nuclear powers on the planet were not talking to each other when we showed up here. It doesn't seem like a really safe thing to be doing. And the other thing is if you'll just talk to Putin, and just like our president, he's got a little ego on him, fluff him up a little bit. And we're not going to change the Russian system, so get over it. The neocons, Robert Kagan, Victoria Nuland, they're all like, Russia's the enemy. And if you don't say so, you're a Russian sympathizer. Well, I've been in business with Russians before. I've talked to the Russians. I've been through Russia as a military officer and as a businessman. And I'm not here to tell you that we're going to just love every little facet of the Russians, but you're not going to love every little facet of any country you operate in. So they want to box in Putin. And here's the cynical part of me. If we want to take this autopsy all the way back to its start, it's when Russia told them to get lost on founding a European Bank of International Settlements central bank in Russia.
How long ago was that?
That was 2010, 2011, right before Victoria Nuland got interested in Ukrainian revolutions.
But they seem to be all butted up with them and Iran and Brazil trying to create a new currency.
But
so, well, I mean,
so that's the thing.
Trump's like, if that happens,
I love the BRICS. First off, President Trump is going to threaten them. That's fine. What do you think he's going to do? Right. But you have never met a more dysfunctional family than the BRICS. You have never met a more dysfunctional. So we're all, people will come out here because we all need an enemy. So the BRICS, they're going to get rid of the dollar. They're going to disintermediate all of us. The Saudis are going to come in. They're going to destroy us economically. Okay, maybe. But I don't think so. And here's why. None of them get along. Look at the headliners. India can't stand Russia or China. Well, they'll sell them stuff. But Brazil is always angling for a different deal with Lula. South Africa is a murder state engaged in genocide and appropriation of property right now. And, Putin doesn't care about that. He just wants to go make money or have a base for his ships or something he can get out of them. So,
but was Russia exposed during all this Ukrainian bullshit? I mean, like, I always felt like Russia being repelled by Ukraine would be like if America wanted to go to war against Rhode Island and it wasn't able to invade it.
Yeah, I said this. So when the war started, I said this right before hostilities started on Newsmax. I said, it looks like the tanks are imminent. They're going to roll. And I hear all these guys like Milley and the other generals saying Russia will roll up Ukraine in 5 days. And I said, okay, maybe. And so on TV, what I would say is maybe it's possible. But you would then have to look beyond the Russian system, the corruption, the fact that the Russian high general staff never thought they'd fight anything ever. So all that money, the $50 billion they were given to modernize the force, yeah, they didn't do that. So what did you get? You got an orc army with 0 strategists who all bought their positions in this corrupt system. And so what I said is I worry that if the Russian army embarrasses itself, this will be a long, protracted conflict. And
so they were exposed.
And what did we do? It's World War I. You want to go see what World War I looked like? Just add in drones and then head to Ukraine, and that's what it is.
I gotcha. So how do you see that ending, and how do you see China responding to the way that ends? How do we have? All right, so I think that there's.
I know what I do.
Well, listen. Let me read you in on a cool couple things, and then you analyze and interpret that from your perspective from national security. So, this industry that I'm in, or we're in, the data center industry. Right. Okay, so I'll give you the real history. The very first data center ever built. Well, a lot of people think that the industry started in 1994. Right. Because that's when Amazon.com went live with their website, and they at that time represented like 60% of the internet traffic, probably, right? So people were like, that's when we really started. We started with World Wide Web 1, then 2, and then we got into this thing called e-commerce, which led to the Internet of Things. And then we started aggregating data at a larger volume and scale and velocity, and that turned into an adoption rate of cloud.
Right.
And I mean, look, cloud is the 5th utility.
Right.
So the first was plumbing, the second is electricity, the third is connectivity.
Right.
The fourth is gas. And if you add them all together, the fifth, that's a utility, that's the data center, and that's a cloud. Do you use cloud services on your phone?
Of course.
Okay, you're buying a fifth utility.
That's my startup AI company.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you think about this industry from a perspective of the way that we're evolving, the people I'm working amongst, like what 2025 is to the data center industry or AI is what 1925 is to the automobile industry. Can you imagine even driving one of those cars around? You'd be like, what in the literal fuck did people? But the reality is,
I get to pick my color.
Yeah, out of that.
Right.
But the thing is we're in the infancy of AI, right? Meaning like this is the worst AI we'll ever use in our lifetime. Every year,
it is.
Every month, it'll just get better, right?
Right.
But at the same time, the people, I'm working amongst the Henry Fords of my space.
Right.
They're still here. They started and pioneered this. And if it was in the mid to early 90s to now, then what do you think they've been waiting on to retire? More than half of our workforce in the data center industry has been here for more than 20 years. The silver tsunami is coming. And I think the only things that they've been waiting for was the end of a very volatile election cycle that lasted for 4 years and we gave a lot of fatigue to everybody. The media did a great job of really trying to propaganda, push, and weaponize a divide in the nation. I think the media is trash in most respects. I think there are certain sources that have credibility for true journalism.
Yeah.
But 95% of them are not journalists.
That's exactly right.
And I think that the journalists, the true the homogenous construct of journalism was defined to protect its citizens from tyranny.
Right.
And they are contributing to it by being bought off. Right. So what happens when all these people that started this industry in 1994, let's say it did start then, when it really started in 1945, government contract, U.S. Army, National Security and Defense was the very first data center. But let's say it started in whenever, we can say 94. Yeah. Well, then that we're how old are we? How old would that make us? 31 years old, right? Sure. And if you think about it, it took 46 years before 1 in 4 Americans adopted electricity from the time it was introduced as a utility. 27 years for the phone, right? So that's just a copper wire. So if you look at it, I think that there's this massive group of people that have been in this industry since the birth of this industry. And they went through the same apprenticeship together. None of them knew. Like now I can call a Peter Gross. I could call a Chris Crosby. I could call people and get information. Those dudes didn't have anybody call. They were like, dude, they're in the foxholes.
Make it up.
And it was like this insane learning curve that they had to jive to. And for me, I look at the industry and go, what happens when all those people leave? When half of our industry is over 20 years in the space, what were they waiting on? Was it the end of the election cycle, which hopefully leads to a little bit more global stabilization on the economy, which means that their 401ks are protected and they retire? Maybe they were waiting for a de-escalation between us and China before they could trust their 401ks. Maybe they were waiting on a de-escalation of a couple conflicts like in Israel or in Ukraine. But those things have an impact on technology, the way we adopt it as consumers and the way that we build towards it, right? So we have so many people that can leave and they know where all the bodies are buried.
That's right.
So now I'm sitting here going, look, we can't send kids to college. There are 1 out of 4 kids graduating from college this year with a degree that's obsolete because of technology already. So we have to create this talent pool for people to deliver power stations, power plants to support data centers because we consumers adopt it so fast that it's untenable. Right. It's unscalable based on the vehicles of energy that we have now. So today we're going to use a lion's share of renewables as much as we get our hands on in the next 5 years. But we need in the next 5 years, nuclear reactors to turn on. And until then, we have to also understand what's the barrel that we're facing now, because China right now has 31 nuclear reactors worth more than $500 billion of construction underway today. And by the way, until they get those online, they're going to build more power plants they've built more power plants in the last 12 months than we've done in the last 5 years in America. So we're battling this group. And we have to hope that we were in a Cold War. We were battling Russia until they just imploded. And what you're telling me is in a few years from now, the same thing may happen to China. Right. They may implode amongst themselves.
Right. And it won't be their tech. It'll be their culture and system.
Well, I'll tell you this. They do a good job of plagiarizing and copying everything that we build here, right? But
we just keep moving the goalpost on them.
Right. Well, I mean, I think not having the fundamental core foundation where things originate from makes it hard to understand where things are going in the future.
Kid plagiarizes in 3rd grade on an essay question about the Boston Tea Party, but he never read anything about it. And so then the teacher says, "So you wrote this?" "Yeah, those are my words." "Okay. What did you find about what were Sam Adams' motivations besides the country in instigating the Boston Tea Party?" "I have no idea." "Right, because you didn't read any of the stuff I
Sam Adams, that's a beer. That's a kid. That would be my kid saying that.
Yeah. So what we have is a clash. If it's, I'm going to steal your technology, we'll play cat and mouse. We'll play spy versus spy. Okay, fine. But where I see China going to this magical places, and you understand this, is the models in AI, the quantum compute, the idea that they can also at the exact same time have the Great Firewall, keep their people girded to what they can see out of the world in information space, is ridiculous. So you can't be the leader in AI and then say, and we're not going to let anybody see this stuff.
Yeah.
So the point is, I think they're sowing their own seeds of revolution with every single DeepSeek project they invest into. Because, and then here's another one for you, which is everybody's like Skynet. Sam Altman did it, OpenAI. He's a lefty. We're all going to die. Okay, great. Yep, I get it. But as like you said, to your point, these models are still in prehistoric times. This is version 1.0 space.
Yeah.
So you can call it 4 if you want. It's still beta. And so because we're in the infancy, the hopeful me, I'm an eternal optimistic, so full disclosure. Does AI then get the experience of every written document and discovered document in the history of the world and the history of the planet and come to its own set of ethics and morals and understanding?
Well, becoming
when you get to
sentient.
When you get to sentient,
and
well
that's
beyond
the fear.
AGI. So you got AGI, then ASI.
Yeah.
And ASI is where I'm like, you might have started this model out pretty biased, but it might not work for you because the book of Locke is in there, and so is Voltaire, and so is Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. Problem.
Well, not just that problem, but because it's eating and it's interpreting this data from cynics.
That's right.
But at the same time, that's not my biggest concern. Think about where a lot of AI is written.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Silicon Valley.
Okay, so
Seattle.
think about Seattle, which tried to have its own city.
That's where my company is.
Okay, but watch. So Seattle or San Francisco, where, I mean, those are markets where it just looks like the zombie apocalypse. So much. It's just failed cities where you have, there's been this thing that's been overran in some of those cities. It's the not to get too political, but there's a lot of things that led to that. And what I would say is those people that live in those markets where you see the zombie apocalypses and stuff that vote for those politicians that provide for that environment, they're the same people that go to work and write code.
I could not agree with you more, but let's go to the higher levels and where it gets really dangerous. So Sam Altman, brilliant technologist. Peter Thiel, brilliant technologist. You've got all these guys who are just amazing. But then what I have found, and I work with in my company, is a whole lot of scientists. If I am good at this, man, I'm good at everything. And if I'm good at everything,
I'm better than you.
Exactly. So this Constitution you speak of, these liberties you speak of, I could care less about that crap. I remember being at CFR one night, and Eric Schmidt in a 2010 Google environment is come to talk to us about the dangers of information online. And I thought, okay, Eric Schmidt, he is going to responsibly tell all these old people who don't know how to turn on a computer that you got to really protect yourselves, and that'll be responsible. No, that's not what he said.
What did he say?
He said, your data will soon be available whether you want it to be or not. And if you're doing something bad, my advice would be don't do it, because we're going to know everything. And I am just chilled to the bone going, so you've got all these technical skills. You certainly have the banking cred. You've got the financial wherewithal on how to build a big company, but you don't understand America. You don't understand the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. You don't get any of that. And you don't think that you have to respect any of that. And honestly, if I was to be critical of Elon Musk right now with his Project Stargate and all this mRNA happy crap, I would say the same thing. I'm like, you can't violate people. People are sovereign. If I don't want your Neuralink, I'm not taking it. And you can't box me in to make me take it.
I didn't even know that is that the narrative or the agenda that he's talking about now?
Well, they've got this Stargate group. Larry Ellison said, I'll invest $200 billion or whatever, $500 billion into the U.S. economy for mRNA strategies across the whole of government and the whole of society. And I'm like, so what's the goal?
Yeah, no shit.
He's trying to control me? Is that what's going on here? So what I want to really find out, I am going to read all the minutes of this crypto conference, because what I want to know is, are we doing DeFi or is it central bank digital currency? Because those are two different things. One, I love. I get rapid settlement time. I can move money any damn place I want. I can work on a project with Rajiv in Pakistan and everything is groovy. The other one, we looked at your social media and apparently your bank account may not be accessible for a while. We're putting you in timeout.
We didn't like what you talked about.
We're putting you in timeout, citizen. Yeah. And that's not what you and I fought for when we put on a uniform.
No, that'll never pass. I don't think that'll ever pass in the States.
No, but we have to call it out because, again, you get to the age thing where I love President Trump, met him, had dinner with him, but he's 80. Okay. Do you understand the puts and takes? I know that President Trump would stand up for the Constitution in 5 hot seconds. I know he would. But who's talking to him? Who's getting in his ear about this tech stuff that he doesn't understand? Is it Elon? Because I want other voices in his ear besides Elon's.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not, I worry about, like, I'm all about the efficiency that like Doge is doing right now. Like, it's incredible how much
they pointed out the corruption. I mean, which we knew was there.
I hope there's a way. I empathize for anybody that got caught up in that stuff. You know, the people that are potentially getting fired or let go that just moved there with their families and maybe they have cancer or kids or who knows.
The Washington, D.C. real estate market?
I just saw it this morning. 8,000 homes on the market.
Oh my God.
Average median prices has dropped by $140K. Did you see what the average Northern Virginia Google top 10 things Google?
The Fairfax McMansions are in deep shit.
Hey, but like there was 2 weeks ago, there was a post that said the most trending things on Google for searches in Northern
criminal
Virginia.
Defense attorneys.
It was all criminal stuff.
I know.
So like you have all these people like, dude, I know I've been working for the government forever and I've probably been doing shit that I shouldn't have been doing. How in trouble am I?
I have no sympathy for any of them. I'm going to be very draconian on that.
All right.
If you're like, hey, I got a mortgage, I got a kid, and I bought a house, and I don't really have a choice. It's like, yeah, you do.
So this is what I'm going to say.
Why'd you raise your hand in the first place?
Well, look, I would say this. I cut from the same cloth, so I could tend to understand and feel, but I will also
I'm an old man.
But you have to understand, there's a lot of people that just aren't smart enough to understand. They haven't seen the Boston's kickoff, and those are the people that I'm like, look, if you kind of knew the risk, to my understanding, they gave out like, hey, dude, you all have a chance to resign, or you're gonna,
it's on.
And those that didn't were like, oh, I think I'm gonna be fine.
Here's where we did them
I have no idea what happened.
Okay, let me put my compassionate hat on. If there's compassionate, Blaine, it's because I had this with my own flying squadron. I had C-17 flying in it. And one afternoon, after flying on a bunch of missions and talking with people, just normal talk, I brought in 3 boxes of pocket constitutions. I said to all of them, I said, look, you all join the military. In this Constitution is the ultimate liability clause, meaning when you signed, you said, I can die for this.
Yes.
But yet you guys will go downtown and you'll take a stupid auto loan at 9% on a late model Trans Am that you can't afford. And the payment's right, though. It's only $343 a month. So the payment's right. It's only 72 months. The car won't even work at that point in time. However, it's good. And you read every word of that contract, but you won't read the one that cost you your life in combat. So read this. Now let's get back to the compassionate Blaine about what we saw with Customs and Border Patrol and all of the illegalities that have happened in the past 4 years. We don't teach anyone in the federal government, although they'll raise their paw and they'll say, I support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Okay, what does that mean? What did you just say? Because you swore to that. What did you say? And I think that we have all this crap BS additional training, all this CBD training. You got your sensitivities course, you got your equities course, your inclusion course, your my favorite CBT is the information assurance course. I love that one, where you have these computer generated people going, "Hey Bill, could you copy these files on my zip drive?" Did Bill do the right thing? So if there's anything that we should imbue any federal worker with in this nation, we can't assume they had civics and history training.
That's what I'm saying. There's people that don't know. And
we can't assume that they know a damn thing about that oath, that they just said the
patriotic.
They're the words
American
out loud.
Citizens, want to go work for their government.
Now, the older ones,
right things.
Lock them up.
Yeah, so I'm saying
no problem.
The ones that knew better are the ones that are the big challenge.
Lock them up.
And those are the Pied Pipers that have been the most harmful. But, this is going to be an exciting week because tomorrow we get to talk on this panel about national security.
I'm excited.
I get to talk about data centers all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the most punk rock industry in the world right now.
It is cool.
Look, imagine this. Imagine where what the biggest pioneering evolutions that came out of the second industrial revolution, the discovery in AC and DC power.
Yeah.
And the way that we transformed the usage of a combustion engine from a farm, device into an automobile, and then how that transformed humanity.
Right.
Now,
and even then it got shitty.
Well, dude, we still did.
What did we do to Tesla?
Well, look, so I've never been a Tesla fan. I've always been like, why are you doing that? You're just shifting the requirement onto the grid, where emission standards are probably less than what you get at the automobile level.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm like, but what do I know? Right.
The cool part is, back then, Westinghouse, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller all had the ability to put the squeeze play into Edison and really put the squeeze play onto Tesla. Okay. So it left the train on innocent scientists makes cool discoveries, left the station a long time ago. But here's what's really cool, in the United States especially. And I have a cohort in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So in my region, 3-state region, there are the coolest scientists, and they are doing stuff that would blow your mind.
Dude, the most
advanced quantum physics.
We have a laboratory there. It's one of the most advanced labs we have.
And they had me out for their secret conference underground last year, and I saw stuff that I just went nuts on. I just went, how is that even possible? And so and they were in every category. It wasn't just one discipline. So there is this exponential burgeoning of tinkerers, inventors, and kooks that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the CIA can't go, "Hey, I noticed you invented free energy. We're going to have to come roll you up." And it's like, well, Billy did it too. He's just got a different way of doing it. Well, Sally did it over here in Poughkeepsie. What are you doing? Meaning, it's what Ray Kurzweil postulated in his book, The Singularity is Near. And I do think we are at the knee bend. And that is the exponentiality of change. So no less on Facebook today. This guy comes out and he's got a V8 replacement, but it's a hydrogen-based engine and it can run a Ford F-350 and it shits water. So the point is like, all you oligarchs and you big maniacal boys who own K Street and the lobbyists and all of this stuff and the senators and the congressmen, there's just too many rats. You're not going to get all the rats. Some of the rats are getting through now, and you're going to have a problem. Some of them know how to get to Mars. Sorry, Elon, but they do.
Well, I'll tell you, the best part about the technology is, I think we're in the fifth industrial revolution. Yeah. Our panel's the last industrial revolution. And in each industrial revolution, it giveth with one hand, but then there's an unintended consequence of some kind that it taketh with the other. And in the beginning, it was pollution and child labor, and, we've got better working conditions. And, every industrial revolution actually spends a little bit of time fixing the unintended consequences of the previous.
Yin yang.
Yeah. And right now, I think it's Goldilocks, where we started really getting our technology in the third industrial revolution.
Right.
And it was probably just a little, let's say not too hot, but let's just say it was a little too cold. So we over-rotated and pivoted as a consumer. And by the fourth industrial revolution, which began at the dot-com bust of 2000, we really dove deep on technology for the first time. We really started exploring AI. What is quantum? We started getting into all kinds of crazy things. And then that's where the pendulum shifted just a little too much to the right? So we went too too cold. And now in the fifth industrial revolution, or the last industrial revolution, perhaps we come or arrive to a part in where it's just right, where we're supposed to have a healthier, more harmonious relationship with the machines and technology in our life in this phase. I think it's possible because I think
it's possible. It is possible.
I think there's a lot of people that are waking up and they're looking at their cell phone, like people were looking at cigarettes when I was born, right? And then like how, 10 years later, people look at 15 years ago. McDonald's was cool until 15, 20 years ago, and now it's not.
Right.
But why was that? It wasn't like...
They changed all the ingredients.
Well, I know.
Look, and now they're killing you.
Well, look, but not now.
Big Macs I ate as a 5-year-old were way better than today.
Not just that, but the fries were like beef tallow, salt, and a russet potato.
What's wrong with beef tallow?
But look, that's
every day.
That's what RFK Jr. is putting back in all the fast foods right now. So like what I'm saying is like it's working, but...
He better step on the gas.
Well, he's got a lot of, it's the government.
It's a mess.
Right. So, I mean, like, let's give him the time that he needs to do the right thing. My thing is, if you look at what happens, it's too hot, too cold before it's just right. We're getting to a part in which we're using, the technology was once something that compromised our security, our privacy, and allowed us to probably become the freaks that we are, that now we get to be freaks on the world and not just in our closets. And then next thing you know, we're kind of settling into where we don't like I used to not love technology because my privacy or because of this, but now I find a lot of my inspiration every day. I get a lot,
of course,
eating habits, workout habits, sleep habits,
the things we can access now.
It's incredible, but
it's out of control.
But I look at it in a way in which,
if I get cancer, I am certainly not going down to the cancer shop.
Hey, look, we've learned a lot, but which one do you want to try next? By the way,
let's try that one.
Hold on, we just did that one. Try this one.
Let's try that one.
Pour that one. That way you have to have all three pours.
So,
but go ahead.
So there's a book that's been out since '94. Good year. That's what you were pointing out. And it's written by who's considered the father of nanotechnology science, and that was at Berkeley University, Dr. Eric Drexler, and it's called The Engines of Creation. You can get it for free. Download it for free. And it's optimism. You think it's a Peter Diamandis book. Oh, everything's rosy. We're living large. But then there's chapter 10. And chapter 10 is just one dark, negative chapter.
Nice.
Called The Engines of Destruction.
Okay.
So when you yin-yang this stuff, there is always going to be the bad guy who wants to control you. Always. And he's going to look at the tools that he or she can use at their disposal to affect that control over you, or I don't know, burn up your property and make you sell it for dirt cheap and take over it. Whatever it is, it's this tug of war between technologists writ large. Always see, they're very hopeful people. They're very optimistic people. Hey, we solved a big problem. That's great. But it's when you get to the people holding the money, and then you get an agenda behind that, then they start to go down we'll buy this from you and we'll exit you. And now this is my technology. And now I can do what I want with my technology because I've got a very different agenda than your feed the world thing. So we have to be careful about that. And I think that and this is what I love about where we're at right now. We're at the inflection point.
I agree.
We are at the knee bend. And a lot of things aren't going to sort themselves out.
Right.
But a lot of things are. And for entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs, I think people like us thrive in chaos. And I think you always are looking for the opportunities. But I think that we will see just as many opportunities as we see threats in this new world rising. And so when we see all the parts and pieces as a military officer, I'm like, holy crap, Skynet's right around the corner. We're all in trouble. Where's Arnold Schwarzenegger? But I can also see where all these models coagulate. We get to ASI, sentience, and you can be the bad guy, but you're figured out in 5 hot seconds, and your file just went over to DOJ. So there's so much tumult.
Too much of a good thing's a bad thing.
Yeah, but what I love is that I think most military people, especially those of us went off to 30 years of unnecessary warfare, we look at is love chaos. I was asked by Secretary Donnelly, Secretary of the Air Force, when he's interviewing me for my job to work for him. And I was late and I'd lost my phone. I was
It's very general of you.
And it was, and I was a colonel, and I didn't really want the job anyway. I'm a pilot, and I was really enjoying that. So he sat down with me, and what was supposed to be a 45-minute interview became a 12-minute interview, which I thought, oh, that's the end of this. And the death knell, the reason you know you're not getting the job is when he asks you, so why do you think you were so successful in Kyrgyzstan? And I wasn't thinking about my lost phone or anything. I looked out across his room and I just went, it's because I love chaos. That's why. And all my problems were mine, and I had to solve them all. And Petraeus said, you'll make all the decisions here, and if you make the wrong ones, I'll fire you. And I'm just like, that's great. This is a beautiful place for a leader to be.
I love merit-based accountability programs.
You'll judge me by the outcome. So then I said, well, we're done here. And I saw the 12-minute mark. I said, well, I'm not getting hired. And I walked out to my friend who's the one-star working for him. And I said, it's not going to happen. And she said, oh, no. He's going to make a decision on Friday. I'll let you know Friday. Well, Friday comes and goes, and here comes Monday. And I said, hey, look, I got to go find a job. So could you just tell me I didn't get the job so I can go get another job? She said, well, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, it's not your fault. I did all of this. It was mine. She said, no, he walked out 5 minutes after you left and said, that's our guy.
Because you love chaos.
Yeah. And that's what we've had a lot of in the Pentagon. And I could care less, honestly, to be very sincere, I don't really give a crap about rank and all that other crap. It's like, I have an objective. I have a mission. I have to go get my mission done. And you're an impediment to my mission, so I have to figure out how to get my mission done around you. Right. You're either going to play ball or you're not going to play ball. And if you're not playing ball, I got to figure out another way.
Isn't that so awesome? That's the way that we've been conditioned and trained.
Yeah.
I think that's an advantage of almost.
It's an advantage for our whole country.
Yes.
The whole country's like, and entrepreneurs, they're wired that way. Yeah. And that's why I wish for our tribe, for the vets, oh gosh, don't settle for DC. Don't settle for a Booz Allen job. Come on out here. Get involved with something. Get involved with a startup. Get involved with an idea that's been burning in your brain. But don't settle because you have all the skills. We were taught everything we were taught for combat over the last 30 years equates to your leadership, all of that other stuff, thinking outside the box, ill-defined situations. That's entrepreneurship.
Try to think of it like this. I work in a very unique industry that hasn't been around very long. Mm-hmm. I got out of the military in 2000. So I've been in the game for a bit and it's changed. I mean, it changes right now every month, but it's changed significantly year over year. Yeah. And I don't know if there's a lot of value in experience in this industry because the way that we build things today is not even close to what we did last year or a year from now. But the military thing to me has always been something to where, They call this industry, it's called mission critical. And I always found that to be interesting. The vertical, like there's technology, there's finance, there's healthcare, there's manufacturing, there's retail, then there's mission critical.
Right.
And mission critical was a subjective term defined by brokers years ago that said, anybody that it was really during the birth of IoT, right? Where when e-commerce came online, people said, look, it's mission critical if you can quantify the loss of downtime of 1 second by either the loss of $1 million of revenue per second, like an eBay or an e-commerce platform, or death, like the FAA that's washing planes go back and forth. They cannot go down, right? Or a hospital that go down.
No fail mission.
Right. So, and I started by building hospitals first, right? And then broadcast stations, and then I got into data centers because I mean, I was doing those in the middle, but then I realized that was just more of everything, and we were doing more of those. And the thing that's interesting is the industry has changed so much now to where it's not even the same industry as what we started, and there's so much growth potential now that
there is.
Like it's blue sky still. It's a whole new industry. I mean, it's been like I said, it took 46 years before 1 in 4 Americans adopted electricity in their home. Technology is going to sit out there for a bit before it's like, all right, this is safe. Oh, connectivity? No. It took 27 years before 1 in 4 families that wasn't a function of cost. That was like, why do I need a phone? Right? So now there's so many things trending in another direction for us.
Right.
That there is patterns that we get to see. We as we don't call it more mission critical in the military, although it is. We just measured it in our own mortality. Yeah. So I was on a fast attack submarine. Dude, a cook could walk by and press the wrong muzzle bulb valve, and next thing you know, does that make sense? So like, we had to pressure test crews and make sure people were smart. There wasn't a lot of stupid people on submarine. I don't mean stupid. I mean like.
Oh, I understand exactly what you mean.
I mean, most kids could do long division, and
let me tell you about Cashman's Law of Crew Aircraft. To every aircrew, there's a dork. And then the addendum is, look around you. If everybody's cool, you're the dork.
I was that guy on a submarine. No doubt I was that guy. But my thing is like, everybody coming from the military already comes from a mission critical background. Okay. They already have mission critical experience. They just didn't measure it in downtime. They measured it in their own mortality. And they have the experience necessary to make a difference in this industry, because the only experience that matters in this industry isn't, it's, do you have the ability to learn at the most insane learning curve on this earth? And then, by the way, can I just throw the mission over the fence to you and say, hey, go figure it out, and give you no guidance? How many times did you get that mission, sir? I mean, I'm sure you got that.
Absolutely many.
I know that no one brought me in to do the easy jobs. I got brought in when shit was behind schedule, over budget, or someone else couldn't figure it out. And I didn't jump in there with well, let me tell you what page 47 is, the playbook. I was like, it's survival
page 47
skills.
Doesn't matter anymore.
It's how much confidence do I have in my survivability skills to navigate through and get creative.
Every book we have in aviation on page 1 of any manual says nothing replaces good judgment for anything you're going to read in the following pages.
Amen to that. But what I'm saying is everybody from the military has the optics of life. They've been pressure tested. The stress inoculation that they've gone through has led them to where they can provide value in this industry.
They come into the water.
And that's it.
Jump in.
And this industry is not only short hundreds of thousands of people globally right now, but half of our workforce is set to retire. And I'm not going to be able to go train half that workforce on construction.
Recommendation.
Yeah, let's hear it.
As a guy who's working on an AI company focused on supply chain.
I want to hear about that, by the way.
So what I would do is, you have all these graybeards that are about to check out with a whole lot of corporate knowledge. So what I love is the podcast format and natural language models. Sit down with some of your graybeards who are some of the most compelling people in this space. They know all the things, and then you just talk to them, and let all that data from their words get ingested, get it pulled into a language model, get it parsed, and then get it overlaid with all of the other experts that you start to grab and all the other data points. And what we can do is start to build resilience for the future. And I think resilience is going to be its own industry. I honestly believe that technology resilience is going to be its own industry, which is, look at us in the military. We went, as soon as we could give up our grease pencils and the plastic boards where we wrote down the schedule, we did.
Yes, no kidding.
It's on PowerPoint. Oh, look at this. Okay, we got all that. I have said many times.
I'd rather use grease pencils.
I have said many times to 4-stars who were pissed off at me. Again, my nickname, the Irascible, who 9/11 had just started. Your buddy, we were facilitating C-17 drops into Afghanistan, humanitarian air quotes stuff going in. And and I remember telling our 4-star one night on the third shift, I said, if I was the enemy, and a good enemy, and he goes, what? Because he's just had it with me.
No one likes the devil's advocate.
That's right.
Cynics.
Yeah, go ahead. Be that guy. And I just said, if I was the enemy, I would devise something that took PowerPoint away from us.
Because then we wouldn't be able to talk.
Yeah. What would we do? And he said, what? I go, if somebody removed Microsoft Windows from us right now, what would we do? And he goes, you think too much. But so what I believe is, there's a resiliency piece out there. And part of resiliency is going and taking your graybeards, meaning
go back and learn the fundamentals.
Just because we're in the new, don't throw away the old. Don't think that that's not useful, but it can be digitized. And then we're about to move into analog computing. And if we're going to move hard into analog computing, what better application than to take the graybeards, for me in supply chain, for you in data centers, and sit there and go, hey, so here's your scenario. You got this, you got that. Here's what's going on. You got a level 5 disaster. How would you handle that? And then they start to spew. Well, if you start to build up so many data points like that in so many interviews with your outgoing workforce, you've trapped them. And if you've trapped them, at least the language models. Because this at my company, my startup company, Alchemy, we are very, very interested in not just ingestion of data, but our models and how they parse the data. So one model will handle something this way. One model will handle something this way. Something could be just as simple as an overlay. It's weather. We're overlaying it, but it's now going to point to risk. If you have the ability to have the corporate knowledge coming forward, what you're building into the system is resiliency.
So let's talk about that, because you bring on, that's a really interesting blind spot that you just touched on. And it's funny that you talk about it, because I see the value in that every day. I was born and raised on military bases my whole life. Mm-hmm. Where the blue hairs were is where the wisdom was. You know what I'm saying? That's right. I spent my time.
And nothing makes them happy.
I spent even when I was in the Navy, I was in submarine school. I was in this thing called Silver Dolphins, where maybe if you score higher on your tests, you don't have to do so much bullshit, Right. But you do have duty still, and your duty wasn't to stay and watch. Your duty was to march in parades or go to the VA hospitals and talk to the Air
Force is the same.
God bless it. That was
you want to have a career? Go be the air show director.
But it
doesn't have anything to do with warfighting.
I know, but it does give back to where we came from. And so I'll tell you, I was wired to where I just thought all leaders were like the men in the military that I met. Like my father was E1 to 05 in the Air Force, 24 years. And he could have picked up at 06 if he wanted to move back to the Pentagon again, but he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is I've been around amazing leaders my whole life.
Mm-hmm. I've been very blessed there too.
It's incredible. Even on this, I'm around people in the military.
Some are still mad at me.
Yeah, I had that effect on a lot of people. Yeah. But I had great leaders. Great leaders. Doesn't mean I was friends with them. Right. In most cases, I wasn't. We stood watch together. We were on the inspection teams together.
What a cool thing to study them.
I was immersed.
Yeah.
People will say
Why did you decide what you decided? I want to know.
I have incredible leaders on my team. Mm-hmm. And someone said something to me once ago, let me just stop you right there. I've never been to a leadership course in my life. I was the product of secondhand smoke, secondhand leadership.
It's the better leadership course.
Well, I got to sit around and immerse myself with people that would take their rank off and just lead. Yeah. And then you would take from that things that you wanted to emulate, right? And I came out of the military I could not have had a worse mindset. I expected the same from my civilian counterparts. So as you're talking hey, Kirk, you need to go sit down with these captains of industry. Let me tell you what's interesting about my industry. Most of the founders of this industry, and I hope that they're listening, they suck ass because they keep everything they do so secret. I have sat down with the founders of the law. There are companies that I've sat down with companies. I'm like, you guys have transformed society and had an impact on humanity with
this is my experience.
And they go, yeah, we don't talk about it. Or they don't want to talk about it at all because it's the competition or there's this or that. And at some point I was like, cool, because I'm doing a documentary on the history of this industry. And those people won't be a part of it because they just chose they're only focused on profit. Their only focus is on
profits are a byproduct of a well-run, well-led organization sitting on a great business model.
I learned what a great leader looks like from being in the military. I learned what the freaking worst leaders on this earth look like being in corporate America. And I've worked for leaders that at first I was like, man, these guys are visionaries. I love what they're doing. I'm bought in. And then I watched the way they treat humans.
The integrity thing is what bothered me the most.
Yeah, the way they treat humans is trash.
The projects I left were all integrity based.
No, none of these people give a shit about humans. They only care about what is my return,
what's my quarter,
what's my profit, and how does this make me
richer. Look what I did.
So I look at I've asked, there's probably out of the top 20 leaders of this industry, I bet you I've asked, look, I've had some of the badass ones on this space. Guys that have had a profound impact on society and technology have been on this podcast. And then others that I've invited, and there's I'm not done making money yet type of thing. And you're like, I don't need you. I'll never have you come talk here. So
you got the wrong goal.
But what you're talking about is the right way that leaders should look at shit is they should be sitting down and talk. I wish that there was a podcast platform when Henry Ford was around.
Oh yeah.
And Henry Ford would be like, listen, let me tell you,
Right.
Because it wasn't all hookers and burritos for Henry Ford. It was pick and axe work, building unions, fighting with providers and suppliers. And by the way, you're making a product that you can have it any color you want as long as it's exactly this. You know what I'm saying? So they were really fighting culture. And we're doing the same now. It's sad, and I challenge and piss on most of the leaders in this space that don't want to come talk about it, because the reason why this industry is the best kept secret is because of them. And the reason why we're not getting enough talent to support this industry's growth is because of them. So I need to find leaders in this industry that'll bring this out. National security will bring it out.
Yeah.
The innovation itself. I mean, there's also a lot of people in this industry. The biggest addiction in this industry I found are leaders that have made it. Mm-hmm. And then they just sit on what they arrived 5 years ago or 7 years ago.
And that's fueled by the private equity firms.
And they just sit on that.
That's fueled by he's got a track record. Yeah. It's like, what kind of track record?
Yeah, that was,
I'm interested in your track record.
That was last year. I mean, like, did he build the rotary phone?
Right.
We should.
His name's Sanjay. Oh, well.
Well, I mean, I'm talking. I'm like, so they made the rotary phone. We're probably not going to have him work on our optical eyeglass set.
So I'm building a rather big technology company right now. Xeriant Incorporated is going to have a...
What's it called?
Xeriant. Xeriant. We are a penny stock because we're going to be doing a roll-up. So we're 3 cents on the OTC pink sheets at XERI. But what we're doing is we're coring into things that spawn off of aerospace, and I mean aero and space. And those technologies run across the whole gamut of sciences. So data science, AI, hydrogen, propulsion, metallurgy, advanced technologies. We have these scientists that want to get the business crap out of their way, and they want to just work in their shop. Well, the core, the cotter pin of Xeriant is a thing I call Factor X. That is our version of the Skunk Works with a spin. And Factor X, yes, you've got your portfolio as a scientist or an inventor or whatever, and this is what you're working on. But in Factor X, we encourage busting out of the stovepipes. We want to cross-pollinate you. So you're the blockchain guy. I want you to hang out with the hydrogen guy. You're the data science guy. I want you to hang out with the advanced materials guy. And the idea is, or the hypersonics guy. And so the idea is, it's just like the original idea of actually Texas Instruments or General Electric. If you free up your scientists and make them free-range scientists, which is what I call them, then they're
more abstract.
Right. And in our division, the whole moniker of our Skunk Works is called, you know what we could do, ... And then in that, the business people like me, we will spin it off. We'll license it. We'll commercialize it. We'll bring it in-house and do it ourselves. We'll, whatever it's going to be, but we'll move it out. So our first project, our first revenue bearer, it's actually not an aerospace thing at all. It started in aerospace with a fire retardant we were really attracted to, and then we changed the components into it. And then we got the idea to, maybe if we could get some recycled materials, we could do something with this type of manufacturing Wait a minute. If you want to bring something new into aerospace as a material, it takes you 8 years to qualify.
Really?
But if you go to construction materials, well, hell, I could do that in a year. So why don't we just replace sheetrock? Why don't we get rid of gypsum? And all these modular homes that show up with powder in their damn walls, why don't we just eliminate that problem? And it's fireproof and it's waterproof and it's pulling bad crap out of the environment. So who doesn't like that? And we can make it at the same economics that sheetrock's made at. And eventually this technology can go be...
Does it get installed like on a track, like a Kingspan product or... Okay.
So the studs behind the walls, the door jambs, all that stuff, it's all there for us. We're just going to do boards first. And we've got the number one, I won't say who, but the number one construction company in the United States who's kind of putting their arm behind us saying, we're going to get you to the show. But the whole point is, it's taking all of these science disciplines and not stovepiping them. And one of my inspirations is Palmer Luckey over at Anduril. He has done the same thing. We just want to make a networked suite of systems. All our systems have to be networked with each other. It's like, well, that's good, but I can do that with all these things. And I can then go into Factor X, and you'll laugh at this. So there's a Factor E, meaning Factor Y, Factory, and then there's the Factor X. And if you're really good, we'll move you to the Factor X. But we want to put a fund over the top of that So come in with your nutty idea. We'll exploit that with you. But then if you've got that kind of mind, then we're going to cross-pollinate you. And
so you're creating like this incubator of innovators.
Yeah. So R&D is really an incubator, which really has a fund over the top of it. And then what we do is we decide, okay, wow, we didn't know this, but we got a molecular vaporizer they invented yesterday. Let's put that into the world. It looks like a defense item. We should probably do that. So that's the idea. And on the AI side, so I have an AI company that I helped work to stand up. And this is many, many, many models that prosecute risk in the supply chain and help to tell you that Billy's Bolts is basically going to go out of business in 3 months. You might want to get a new Billy's Bolts. Okay, fine. But the use cases that spawn off of that are tremendous. We can do launch modeling. We can do water AI. We can do regenerative farming. There's so many things for that particular type of science. So the point is that you need to be able to, in a veterans environment, when you pull veterans into this stuff and you expose them to it, and we have a lot of veterans on our team. One is a blockchain expert. One is a quantum encryption expert. One is a space additive manufacturing expert. Okay, fine. We bring you in, let you play romper room. We'll take care of the business garbage.
You will be a nerd.
Yeah, and everybody wins.
I do that.
Yeah.
I'm in a technology incubator for labor. So there's 5 phases of the data center life cycle. I provide services and a labor force for all of those phases. They're all different, but I'm the same, right? So, what's sad is, since the war on terror has ended, less than 5% of the companies that exist today are veteran owned. Do you know what the percentage was coming after World War II?
I don't know. Many.
More than almost 55%.
Yeah, because here's the thing.
Most of them were builders.
You have this stupid TAP course, the Transition Assistance Program.
TAPS.
Yeah.
Transition Assistance.
Teach you how to get a job.
Or how to write a resume.
And how to write and they write shitty resumes. Yeah. So even at the general officer level, I mean, I went to the general officer TAP course and I'm like, holy cow. I'm glad I've already got my gig.
Yeah.
Well, what's your gig? I'm doing a financial turnaround at this Bananas Foster aviation company. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Oh, it's heaven on this earth. They need me. But the all that stuff was designed just like our standard industrialized education systems, which we never promote entrepreneurship or that you're going to work for yourself and be the boss. Why don't we teach our kids that? And it's the same thing for our vets. Hey, don't go to work for Booz Allen. Get out here into the country and go do something that makes you get up in the morning. And it may not work out. It may not work out, but it'll probably get you to the next thing that does work out. The point is we do such a big job of inculcating our senior NCOs and our mid-level officers into, we just need security for you. You need to get to another job. You need to get, and you saw how much the champagne bottles would clink in the Pentagon when somebody was getting converted. They're taking my position and they're converting it to a civilian. I'm going to be a GS-14. That's like, you're an 06 and you're converting to a GS-14, so you'll be here forever.
Ish.
Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got security. That's like, is that what's necessary? Is it security? And the thing is,
that's human nature, though.
We don't teach them that there's another way. We don't even give them another way.
Well, it's not taught anywhere, actually.
No,
that's taught at home.
That's my point.
Yeah.
If I had a kid now, I've got 3 adults. Too late. I've got grandkids. But I would be like, what's school doing for you? Are you getting enough out of it? Right. I mean, get the base, history, arithmetic, math, but there's so much more out there. Look at what's going on in the country right now with this new printed circuit board. Not so new, but it's been around for a while. So you got Raspberry Pi computers, and then you've got this ESP32 standard, and the stuff that the kids are making could become $100 million companies.
Of course, which is exciting to watch.
It is exciting to watch. I just bought a all-band receiver, 3D printed case, beautiful color screen, cost me $30. And some kid made this, and all I have to do is change the antenna on it, and I can get worldwide information. I can get SSB, single sideband. I can get your FM radio station that you want to hear something on. And it's no more than 2 inches by 1 inch. Talk about throwing that in your everyday carry bag. Sure. And so, I don't need to use that. I don't have a need for it at all. But the reason I bought it is because
in case power plants go away, you still have your
cool. Yeah. That's cool. And it's like, I want to support things like that. So if you're a kid that came up with an ESP32 project or a Arduino or something along those lines, and it's completely useless, I'm probably going to buy it anyway because
it's an affordable luxury.
It is, and what we're sending the message needs to come back to these kids.
Rewarding innovators.
We approve.
Yes.
Keep going. You're doing the right thing.
I think it all is cyclical. I think it's all coming back.
Yeah.
I think the baby boomer generations is who fucked it up the most for everybody.
Completely. And they stole from us. They robbed the Social Security account. They're part of the USAID scam. I mean, they've just done everything.
Can't stand those people. Thank God.
The Gen Xers have to actually take out the boomers for humanity.
Preach. Yeah. Well, listen, we started this because we're doing this amazing panel, and I know that you're a plethora of knowledge on the risks. And right now, everyone's focused on who is the greatest risk to America with regards to AI. And China has appeared to have tried to put themselves in the position in which they're the most likely candidate to overcome our dominance. And you're saying, hey, let's chill out before we freak out on that, because there's a lot of things that they have that are going against them that are going to be very, absolutely. And from a high level, they have a lot of disparity amongst their leadership. Right. They have a lot of aging infrastructure. They have a lot of parts of their country that is ranging from Stone Ages to the most advanced technology places. They've lied to
themselves the entire time.
Well, but they aren't. We don't have to be worried about them, is what I'm trying to say. I think that our fear
we have to be worried about us.
And that's when we talk about national defense and intelligence, we have to talk about that too, because
we're the problem.
We are.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sitting down with people and I do talk about how China is going to put online more power than what we have in reactors. We have more today. They will have more than us in 5 years from now. However, as long as we have a bridging solution for energy with renewables and natural gas, and we have the ability to talk about how we're going to put power plants back online using reactors, then I think that we will maintain our dominance. And we're not. Look, I just spent you flew in, you woke up, you're like, hey, I woke up at 2:00 this morning to get that. I woke up at 3:00 this morning to get from Midland, Texas here, right?
Oh my gosh.
I know. But my thing is there's a huge push for aligning what we're doing from a water perspective. I mean, the Permian Basin is the largest basin in the United States, I think. And the ratios in which, like, if you're in the Delaware Basin, maybe for, 80% of what you pull out is oil, 20% is water. Well, here it's 75% is water and 25% is oil, but you're using and gaining a lot of water. You can only recycle it, desalinate. There's only so many things you could do until, you're putting it back into the earth, unless you're fracking with something and creating earthquakes. But we have to find a way to put this entire ecosystem together. Yeah. There is a threat from a national security perspective. We can't ignore it, but we have to focus hard on ourselves and aligning ourselves.
No doubt.
So that's why I wanted to have you on, is because
I appreciate you bringing me.
And listen, this is the first but not the last conversation. I may ask you to come back for one of our other conferences, come speak on a podcast again, and help us continuously unpackage what's happening, because a lot of people were born and raised. I mean, I was born where, we were watching the news around the TV at night, and that guy was not gospel, but that was the Burning Bush. And today, I don't believe a single thing that I see from the media.
You got to check it all. Yeah. That's right.
So there has to be another vehicle, another platform for people to get stuff. Hopefully an unfiltered version like what you'll have or other guests have will help people stay focused, to help people reduce anxiety and fears that are fed from the propaganda that comes from traditional media.
Yeah, so you are the tip of the spear in new media. So if you think about that, podcasting, people will flow to the trust centers. People will flow to what they trust. Yeah. And so when they trust you, even if they don't like some of the things you say, I'm in geopolitics a lot. So I listen religiously to Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou of the Duran. It's the most popular geopolitics podcast in the world. Not even close. I disagree with them 30% of the time. Yeah. Now, the cool part is I have a friendship with them, and I can write them on the email going, "No, that stuff you said there was nonsense."
Yes.
But the point is, this is the next wave. The fake journalists have done this. They have abdicated their position. It's not their role. It's not their high lofty perch. It's not their journalism school. It's if you become untrustworthy, people will flow away from you. So now you have in the business model, look at CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC. They're dancing in the streets if they've got viewership on a show of 400,000 people. There's 330 million available watchers.
Yeah.
And the ESG, climate change people, DEI people, they're willing to subsidize that because they're like, bravo, bravo. They're sending the words we want to be out there.
Self-licking ice cream.
It's a self-licking ice cream. And so people are hip to that. They're like, wait a minute, I get this. But then what they do is they flow to the places that they want to go. And this is a perfect outlet of that where it's like, I trust that. I trust what I'm hearing. I had a wildly popular podcast that I listened to all the time. In fact, I was slated to be a guest on it. I'm not going to say which one. But recently I had a guest on it, and I listened to the exchange. I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I need to put a little dot on that trust thing here.
Uh-oh.
Because maybe you're both working for a certain agency.
For sure.
But what I think is so cool is there's this wave in America where people are now hip to the consciousness of propaganda and information warfare around them, and they can then make up their mind going, you know what? I think I'm being evangelized too.
And we feel it. We know it. So listen, this is the part where I bring it home. Is there anything else I didn't ask you that you want to unpackage here today? Look, don't feel like we're going to do this again.
Yeah.
Right. So is there anything you want to leave the listeners if they want to reach out and challenge you on a question? How do they reach you?
I love debate.
Okay.
My mentor at CFR was the late Les Gelb, and I'm so lucky to have met him before he passed away. But Les was absolutely the opposite of me politically and the opposite of me on everything. And I loved the man like he was my dad. And
do that.
He said, Blaine, we never learn unless we're arguing. And so if you come to me at the _irascible at Twitter or X, and if you come to me at the Irascible Disruptor.
How do you spell it?
IRASCIBLE. And that just means, he's an angry guy. It's like, well, no, I'm angry at the status quo.
Yes.
So if you come to me at the Irascible Disruptor on the Insiders page of Newsmax, I write usually once a week, once every 10 days. I wrote a barn burner 3 days ago, and it's all about Ukraine and what's up with Europe. And it got some eyebrows going, which is what I'm always up
trying to be disruptive.
I'm happy to be disruptive because, like I said, my principals knew me better than my teachers ever did.
Well, look, I think that our listeners, and thank you if you have been listening, hopefully you like and subscribe to the podcast. They know that I went to public school on the West Coast. I'm not smart enough to be able to lie to them or try to send them on something that's bullshit. I just bring on smarter people than me and ask a lot of stupid questions and hopefully unpackage some really complicated shit that over the course of time, we could all listen to these podcasts and gain something from that that'll make us a better professional. That's all this is about, right? So look, I cannot tell you how excited I am to speak with you tomorrow at South by. And I appreciate you flying in. I appreciate your service. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Same to you.
And listen, this is just the beginning, not the end. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Amen.
All right, Blaino.
Great bourbon.
Yes.